In this video, we will be taking a look at the views that provide information about the hunt groups and queues. This information is found under the Queue Status drop-down list in the information bar at the top. Queue Status provides two important pieces of information: a real-time way to see if there are calls in the queue, and a summary of what happened to all of the queued calls throughout the day. Here on the right, we can see what has happened to all of the calls that came into the call center. Starting at the top, we can see the number of presented calls. That is the total number of calls that came into each group, regardless of the outcome. The next four entries, which are color-coded and represented in the graph below, will show you what happened to all of the presented calls. Ideally, the handled number will be as close as possible to presented, as it indicates the volume of calls that were answered by an agent. If the call is not answered, there are three other outcomes. Some of these depend on how you have your group set up, so check your IP office to make sure you know which outcomes are possible. First, a call could get routed to voicemail if you give the callers the option. Next are the calls you want to avoid, abandon calls. These are calls that disconnected while waiting for an agent. Lastly, if your IP office is set up to move calls to a backup hunt group, you would see that increment as overflow. By looking at these five values, you can get a full picture of how the call center is performing. On the left, we can see a real-time view of calls waiting in the queue. When a call comes into queue, we will show the caller ID and the amount of time that they have spent in the queue. As soon as the call leaves the queue, it will drop out of the list. The queue view that is currently displaying is one of 5 views available. This view is intended as a way to see all calls in queue for all groups, as well as the statistics for the entire call center. A similar view is available that will show separate statistics for each hunt group. This is the queue detail view. Switching gears, we have 2 queue views that provide statistics in a grid layout. The grid view displaying currently, the queue detail grid, is one of the best ways to get a full overview of the call center. Information is split up into 4 sections. In the first set of statistics, we see the names of each group and how many calls are currently in each queue. Next, we see a breakdown of what happened to all of the calls that were presented to each group, just like what was shown on the previous screen above the pie chart. Next, we have statistics that you will only find in this view. Here is a summary of how many agents are in each state. This can be helpful in providing an at-a-glance way to see why calls are waiting in the queue. The fields represent how many agents are logged in versus how many are logged out, how many are idle, meaning they are available for a hunt group call, handle, meaning that they are already on a group call, unavailable, meaning that they are using their phone for any call that is not a group call, how many are in busy wrap-up, and how many are in do not disturb. Finally, the 4th set of statistics are some service level statistics. All 3 of these are times listed in seconds. First, we have SOA, which represents speed of answer. This is the average amount of time that a call spends in queue before it gets answered by an agent. Next, we have SOH, or speed of handle, to represent the average duration of the calls. Lastly, we have S to ABN, or speed to abandon, which is exactly like speed of answer, only it shows the time spent in queues before a call abandons. Next, we have the calls in queue grid. This view will show the same statistics as the queue detail grid, but in this view, you will only see the individual calls that are in the queue. Lastly, we have a view that is very simple, and it is a summary that is intended to show the volume of calls waiting to be answered in each queue. This view is best used when configuring a layout to be displayed to the entire call center. Thank you for watching, and check out the other videos to get more information about the CallSuite Live application.